One of them being people who come in high, deal with people who are like drunk. But I want to say with this customer, he definitely had a mental problem issue. I feel bad for him and whatever he's fighting with in his mind. It must be a really, really big struggle for a person to fight with yourself in your mind, knowing that you're good, right? Like you're good, but then on my end, you're not good, right? Them just being their normal selves, like that's just them on a daily basis, is just how they're working with their brain. They can't be who they are because then we look at them as like, you're like really crazy. Welcome back to my 51st episode of I'm Just Sharing with Shaunda. I am Shaunda. Hey guys, hey, happy Thursday. Welcome. I'm super excited to say that this is my 51st. It made me think about like the consistency part about it and trying to stay up and making sure that I get every episode out every Thursday. But as I said before, life is life, things happen. So I feel like I've missed at least 3 uploads on a Thursday. So that who's looking at that? You know, you just keep on moving, you just keep on going. So that's what I do. Other than that, I want to say what wasn't going to stop me too is that I broke my lens on my camera, my Sony camera. And this was the second lens that I had to like purchase. My first lens, the light fell on top of the camera fell forward and it broke the lens, like broke. So I had to purchase that. I believe I got it on Amazon. I think at the time it was a deal on Amazon where I got it for like $79, whatever. Then this one, because this one broke, I'm like, okay, I gotta keep on moving, gotta keep on going. This lens back on Amazon is $119. I was like, dang, whoa. Don't have that right now, but luckily I have my 15 Pro and that is what this is recorded off of. So, hey, I hope it's cool and it's still the same, maybe even better than my camera. But I move on. I just wanted to give an update on like what's going on about that. But I do appreciate the love and support that I've gotten for I'm Just Sharing with Shaunda. I have followers who are following, people who likes, people who DM. No emails yet, but I hope that changes later on down in the future. But I know that when people who do reach out and saying that they want to be on the podcast, it's like super like exciting and warming in my heart that they want to be on something like this. And I'm very excited. It's just working with schedules and also figuring out audio. It is something that I'm learning and going for, but I think for people's patience and the time. But that's just a little update. I want to move forward on what I'm going to be talking about in this episode. So in this episode, I just wanted to talk about how I dealt with many customers who come in, right? And it's many different customers who, you know, whatever they got to do to get through the day and how I have to deal with them. One of them being people who come in high. They're cool, you know, real laid back, but like repeating myself with certain things. I'm like, bro, I don't know how many times I got to say this, but this is what you're asking for. I said it. This is what you're getting. Get it. I have to also deal with people who are like drunk. Those. I always do. I know how to deal with those people. Like people who are drunk, I'm like, yeah, bro, like I can entertain the conversation for just a little bit. But when you go back and forth and you can't stand up, I'm like, bro, I think you just need to go, or I can get you help. I can go get you some water, whatever you need. But they just go anyway. They usually, for the drunk ones, they usually come in to pay a bill and then they be on their way. But sometimes when they're trying to get into buying a phone, I'm like, I can't do this with you until you're sober, bro. Like I cannot get into this conversation with you drunk right now because you're all over the place and I'm not trying to be all over the place with you. So we gotta move on. But I want to say with this customer that came into the store, I never dealt with before. He definitely had a mental problem issue. I never dealt with somebody, I believe he was, I'm trying not to judge a book by its cover, but what I got from him is that he was either bipolar or schizophrenic. And I want to say with what I had to deal with, I had to like really tread lightly on the conversations that we were having. When he first came into the store, I want to say he was very direct on what he wanted, that he wanted to move his number from a different company over to us and he wanted it under a business account. I'm like, cool, money, got you. I got his name, gave him my name. We started off having like a different conversations, and which was really nice. We were just going back and forth on what he was doing and what he does for a living and what he accomplished at the age of 26. Like, he's done a lot. And I'm like, you go, boy, you go, you. Dang, I'm stuck in this job. I've been here for a while and I try to get out when I can, and that's about it. But you ran a club. He traveled, went to Mexico, got his own clothing line, also managed CEO some other place. I'm like, all right, cool, yeah. So with him saying that, he said that he just had to step out real quick because he said that he was shopping to go different places. He had to go to the jewelry store that was like, you know, where we are. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So with setting everything up, waited for him for a couple minutes. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm waiting for him to get the sale. He gonna come back. He does come back. I see that his clothes, it looked like he spilled a drink on himself. And I'm like, oh, okay. He comes back and he was just like, yeah, did you do everything? I said, well, no, I need your, ID. I need the card. I need the account number and the PIN to get everything over. With him, I want to say everything started off pretty good. He started to from what I noticed, the first thing that he started to do was take things out of his bag, organize it, then put it back in his bag, then put it back. And then I'm like, yeah. And he said, so what do you need from me? I said, the account number and the PIN from your company so we can move over the number. He said, oh, okay, got you. And then he would do it again. He would take everything out of his bag, then put it back, but then he took it out again. And he was just like, yo. And then we would have a conversation. He had a lot of knowledge to drop. It was pretty good in what he told me and how he makes money online and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, there you go. And then he told me that he journal. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm still waiting for what I need to start this process, but he's having a conversation with me. He says that he journals. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. I try to journal too, not, as much as I can and all that good jazz. And from there, he just started to ask me these random questions, and he just started to write down things. Like, oh shit, he's about to do this little trick thing where he probably might write down something to see something. So he first started off as his initials on there. He said, I use this, my signature, to sign the checks. I said, oh, okay, cool. And then he also did in that his logo-ish sign for his signature on that. And then he asked me, where do you see yourself fitting in this? I said, I'm not sure. And he circled, it made a little target on the inside, and he was like, yeah, right there, right there. And I was like, oh, what's that, right in the middle? Oh, nice. And then he started to ask more questions. As I answered, he would write this down or scribble down from what I'm seeing. And I was like, okay, maybe this is going to lead into something. And then I'm like, after he asked me the question, he asked me, what is my initial for my first name, or letter of my first name? And I was like, S. He started to shake really bad, and then also tear up. And I'm like, okay. And he said, and as he, his voice is breaking up, and he said, my last name starts with an S. And I'm like, oh yeah. And then he starts scribbling some more on the paper. And then he starts shaking again. He asked me, what's my childhood cartoon? I said, Bugs Bunny. And he said, mine's Bluey. Bluey died. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And he starts crying a little bit and shaking. And I was like, oh my gosh, are you okay? I just don't know what to do. Is everything all right? And he just wiped off his tears and got right back into the normal. He wasn't crying anymore. He laughed it off after asking another question. And I'm like, okay. And then he puts everything back into his bag and then says that he was going to be right back. And I said, okay, just whenever you come back, I just need that account number and PIN. And he said, yeah, I got you. So minutes go by. I'm dealing with another customer. After dealing with them, he comes back in. This time he shows me, he said, did everything go through? I said, no, I was still waiting for that account number and PIN and all the information I need from you. He said, oh, okay, but do you have a Band-Aid? And I was like, yeah, I have a Band-Aid. He shows that he has a cut on his hand. It's a little small cut, and he was like, Harry, I'm bleeding. It wasn't too big, but he was bleeding. And so I gave him a Band-Aid. I put it on for him. And then when I looked at him again, on top of his forehead, he has like a scar. So it looks like he hit his head up against a wall, or whatever he did, he bruised himself. And I'm like, I don't know what I have to do, but try to keep him in the now, keep him calm, keep him in the moment. So I just started asking him like a couple questions about like what he's been doing, why he get into his like clothing line, his business, his YouTube page, and just started to, just try to get to know him. In those moments with talking to him, he did still have like a shaking and getting emotional. So I was like, oh man, I really don't know what to do in this moment. And then I realized I'm really not going to get anything out of him. He did seem pretty, like he did want to do it. Like he was so focused on doing it, but he just had so much going on in his mind. And I just knew that I need to just make sure that treating this man as normal as possible. Like I could tell that he was struggling. And it got a little bit scary, a little bit weary, just because of like his demeanor and how he like changed up. He sort of kind of got on the defensive, and then looked like he gave me this look, and it was super cool but very scary. He got his vape out. He smoked on the vape and like just made this pouty face, but like a little bit big. So two things were going through my mind about like, wow, this good. Probably like three things. Like, wow, this is cool. Other thing is like, I feel bad for him and whatever he's fighting with in his mind. It must be a really, really big struggle for a person to fight with yourself in your mind, knowing that you're good, right? Like you're good, but then on my end, you're not good, right? Other thing is that this is a very scary, I don't know what is going through his mind or what he could be thinking. Could he hurt me? It was just like so many things that were going on through my mind that I feel so bad that with people who have to fight and struggle with themselves to be as normal as possible. And I think it was like twice he left, he came back, and then I went on my break after the second time. My coworker said that he did come back when I was on my break, and said that he would come back in like 2 weeks. And with my coworker, she said that she dealt like firsthand with somebody who is bipolar and schizophrenic, and that he has to take medicine. And I know that with the medicine that, doctors give you, it makes you super down and probably depressed, and how you have to work with your emotions and fighting through it all the time, that it's very hard to do that, and that people hate taking those. So with the people who don't take them, they just trying to go on as normal as possible without taking those pills. So it's just very interesting. I don't support people taking them, because I haven't taken, but seeing how down that it makes them, and that they just don't like the way how it makes them feel, that they just rather not take it. But then when they don't take it, and being around people and them just being their normal selves, like that's just them on a daily basis, is just how they're working with their brain, that they can't be who they are, because then we look at them as like, you're like really crazy, like you're going through a lot of stuff. You have a really bad mental problem, but you just got to work around it. I've only supported is when people are doing harm to themselves, and like with him having that situation of having a cut on his hand and a bruise on his forehead, him probably doing something and him fighting himself, that he probably injured himself, that I feel that the support and the need for pills. But yeah, it was just very interesting. I want to say he did try to end up calling somebody. Like he called somebody on the phone and asked about a pool party, and she was like, no, we're not going to make it to the pool party. And then he started like shaking again, crying, then immediately hung up with her. And then with the person who he was getting off the account with, which is his dad, I recommend, like, do you want to call your dad, see what he says? And then he like switched the conversation with like, oh, it's this FBI agent that I know, that this FBI agent, like, he helps me in this way. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I don't know what to say or what to do if this guy gets on the phone. Hopefully it doesn't get me in trouble, just trying to lighten up the mood. But that was just like the interaction that I had. It just made me think about how having a conversation with them and just trying to figure it out, and seeing how it is very scary that some people don't get to talk about it. And with this situation, he didn't really want to talk about it, but he can tell that I was concerned. But, he just wanted to move on with what he was doing or what he was trying to do. He did shop and got some other things in the mall, and then came back to me. But once I noticed that, I was just like, I can't really get anything out of him, and I hope that everything goes good. I just like, I'll see you the next time. It was pretty interesting, the interaction with that. I just never dealt with a type of person like that before. In the store for however long, I have never dealt with a person like that. They're always like, the other people that I always deal with are drunk people or high people, but never somebody who has like a really bad mental problem and dealing with it. So that was a pretty interesting interaction that I've had with somebody, but it just made me think of how we as a people and community have to treat people who are mentally, have a mental problem and who needs pills to cope, to try to treat them as normal as possible, that they're just a person at the end of the day. And yeah, hopefully that came across cool, but I just wanted to share it. I just wanted to share that experience with everybody on here. So please remember to rate, like, comment, and subscribe to my Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. If you'd like to share your experience with me, please email me at imjustsharingpod@gmail.com. I again appreciate the people who DM me and ask me if they want to be on the podcast. I am working that out, and I will definitely reach out to you when I can. So I will see you guys all in the next one. Bye.